This is a presentation about Hone Tuwhare, and we'll discuss their life achievements, the challenges that they had to overcome. We discuss the reasons for our choice of topic and what we can learn from Hone Tuwhare. So just a bit of background about Hone Tuwhare's life. He was born on October 1922, and he has strong links with the two northern iwis, Ngatihine and Ngatikure. His poems ranges from love poems to New Zealand landscapes to Maori rights issues. One of the many fundamental challenges about Tuwhare's life is that he had to actively fight for the basic human rights of the Maori people because of the land confiscation from the 1800s by the Pākehās, coupled with his own struggles about his Maori identity. Other challenges of Tuwhare's life was how he was going to balance his poems, whether he was going to make it more Eurocentric or more Maori-based, due to the fact that his poems started off in the 1970s, where there was a division between Maori and Pākehā. Just a bit of background about Tuwhare's work. His poems were a departure from traditional New Zealand poetry. His were the first poems to address Maori issues, and their subjects, the poems, range from landscapes to the sea to love, protest, and dispossession.
After No Ordinary Sun, there were a further of 12 volumes of poetry which Hone Tuwhare has written. Amongst them are the 6 that you have seen here on the screen: Come Hail Rain, Sapple and Milk, Something Nothing, Making a Fist of It, Selected Poems, and The Year of the Dog. Here on the screen, you will see the last 6 of the volumes of poetry which Hone Tuwhare has written. And among the last 6 are Mihi, Short Back and Sideways, Deep River Talk, Shapeshifter, Piggyback Moon, and Ooh. Amongst the 13 volumes of poetry that Hone Tuwhare has written, the 2 volumes titled Shapeshifter, written in 1997, and Piggyback Moon, written in 2002, won national awards for poetry in 1999 and 2002. At the midpoint of his career, Tuwhare wrote a series of short tales, one of which, Taniwha, became the screenplay for Io. In The Wilderness Without a Hat, his full-length play was produced to critical praise in the 1980s that explores Maori identity in a non-Maori world through the lens of a tangihanga. We have compiled at least 3 fun facts about the famous poet Hone Tuwhare. Fun fact number 1. In 1988, an exhibition of the collection conducted by Professor Bill Glass at the Moray Gallery in Dunedin sculpted the face of Tuwhare made by Anthony Stones. Fun facts numbers 2 and 3. Many of Tuwhare's poetry are poetic responses to nature and scenery examining the Maori connection to the Whenua. Fun fact number 3. Tuwhare served as New Zealand's second poet laureate between 1999 and 2001.
Today we will be discussing 2 of Hone Tuwhare's poems. The first poem to discuss, Rain, one of Hone Tuwhare's more notable works. The poem Rain merges his deep connection to nature and his metaphorical dexterity. In the first verse, he begins by describing the sound of rain. He then moves on to describe the rain through different senses, such as smell, touch, and taste. He continues to explain that even if any one of his senses was impeded, he would still recognize the rain. Here, his writing also describes what the rain means to him in a metaphorical approach. The final paragraph explains rain as a multi-sensory experience. In his poem, he speaks to the natural phenomenon as if it was a living, breathing person, and continues this concept through an implied intimate relationship, as if it was an interpersonal relationship between 2 people. No Ordinary Sun is another one of Hone Tuwhare's more acclaimed works. Through the analysis of this poem, many are led to believe it relates to the horrific effects of nuclear weapons that were released on Hiroshima. The poem provides a running metaphor with the tree as humankind and the sun as a nuclear bomb. In the rest of the poem, He draws an apocalyptic metaphor through the phrase, "Your end at last is written." This explains that humankind cannot fight against nuclear weapons, and their use would be exceptionally detrimental. Furthermore, the sun that destroyed the landscape and its inhabitants was no ordinary sun. Here it can be said that Maori influences shine through his writing, where he addresses inanimate things. This shows the theme of the importance of human connection to the earth. His interest in landscape, its protection, and his connection to the whenua is clear and vivid in his poems and the imagery they draw.
One of the main reasons why we chose Tuwhare was because of his life background, his cultural identity, his poems, the fact that he was a Maori poet who was writing in the 1970s where severe racism and division were seen amongst Pākehā and Maori.
What we can learn from Hone Tuwhare is that we can represent our culture within our passions. Hone's passion for poetry and screenplays portrayed what had been happening to the Maori people, such as the 1951 Auckland waterfront strike, the South African apartheid, and nuclear testing in the South Pacific.
Another thing we can learn from Hone Tuwhare is that through a creative medium we can share our New Zealand whakapapa with the world, and it transcends language barriers in a way that is relatable in all cultures. Central to understanding our New Zealand culture is to be open and understanding of our Māori Indigenous heritage.